This program is proudly brought to you by LateNightMedia.com for all your podcasting, comedy writing, and hot steaming pod needs. LateNightMedia.com.
Conscious wisdom, challenging our skeptical, critical thinking, digging deep into the dark and the light, and exploring the depths of our mind, body, and spirit. The podcast sprinkled with science, creativity, ageless wisdom, philosophy, and conspiracy. So be part of the discussion and get involved. Be part of the action of thinking and being the revolution. Be conscious with wisdom. Conscious wisdom, challenging our skeptical, critical thinking.
Because I've experienced myself in ghosts and the phenomenon. Mostly I will see things on the side of my glance. So when I'm looking, I tell you, like, sometimes I'll see, like, it's like, oh, there's a person. Oh no, there's not a person. But it's so realistic that it's quite strange. And it actually, from what I see, it kind of is like that kind of movie thing where they do kind of glow a bit white.
I think if you turn your full physical attention on them, they tend to fade out because it's not your physical attention that sees them, it's your esoteric senses.
Okay. Well, tell us about that, Amber. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate? Yeah.
Well, we're all born, hopefully, with some kind of psychic gift, whether it's sight or the sense of smell or hearing or all three if you're really, really into it. But I think when you're really focusing, you cut that out because you've gone into your conscious mind. And that's not the mind that sees them, it's your subconscious mind that sees them, or the superconscious mind.
Or like your third eye, which a lot of people are saying. Yeah.
So that's why you often get them here, just in your peripheral vision. And then when you turn and you've suddenly gone, oh my God, what was that? And you turn and look at them, you snap back into that other state of consciousness and you can't see them.
I've heard a lot of talk when you do a lot of work with seeing auras, and it's the same kind of thing when you're trying to see ghosts this is in the spiritual realms, is that you've got to do like the magic eye 3D thing.
Yeah.
What's that?
Well, you know magic eye when you look
out of focus.
You go slightly out of focus, and then you can see those 3D objects in that. Supposedly that's some sort of technique that will help you focus properly on the different vibrational plane or places of stuff, because you're focusing on the real. To focus not on the real, you have to be out of focus to focus on what's the not real, if that makes any sense.
And I think it's best just to be open to it, because if you've got a closed mind, it's less likely to happen for you. But just to go in there and think, well, okay, I'm here, this is what I want, and I'm not going to be scared, and let it happen.
Unless it's the Entity movie. You don't want to.
I haven't seen it. I don't watch scary
Jack
movies.
knows what that one was about.
You wouldn't want that to happen. All sorts of horrible things.
She doesn't have a fun night. So what's some other places in Brisbane, Jack, that are memorable for you?
Oh, look, we do the ghost tours at Old Boggeray Jail, and that's great because, there are old stories from former officers and prisoners, and to me that gives them a lot of credence. And I mean, other places like the well-known ones like Toowong Cemetery and old graveyards. I guess probably our most famous, locally, our most famous haunted house in Brisbane would be Newstead House.
Well, I've been to Newstead House. Yeah. My family actually gave a present to Newstead House. It's one of the flags or some stuff that's in there.
Yeah,
right.
My family, old family from Brisbane, the Anderson family, were one of the first, I think, from somewhere. But Newstead, amazing. Like, you can go in there and you feel that, like, okay, there's something about this place because it was kept as well. So it's kind of like, do these places that are kept, especially with ruins, like, it's kind of like a focal point where people's focuses is always there. There's so much energy going through it because people want to go there. People want to be part of this thing. Like, there's so many people who go and check out Newstead House. Yeah. Like, you'd be surprised how many people always go through there. And is it these types of energies that the ghosts and this kind of spirit phenomena
How old is Newstead House?
Newstead House dates to the 1860s, I think. I'm just recalling off the top of my head. I think the house was already built before Queensland separated from New South Wales, so that was 1859. So it's probably 1850. So it's not new.
Yeah.
It's been through a lot of stuff.
You imagine on a different time scale with temples that have been in service for, say, 5,000 years.
I know, it sounds
how
amazing.
much energy is built up inside there. It's really amazing.
That's one of the theories about ghosts is that there's not actually souls there as such, or spirits. That it's just the past replaying in the present, and that by a place being heavily used, that somehow human beings, and not just human beings, even animals, leave imprints on those places in the very texture. This makes a lot of
sense to me, actually, that you've said this, because look, as we know, like, time's not linear. Like, for our physical sense in a 3D world, we go from a dot is here and a dot's here, and this goes really along well with the stuff from Back to the Future, since it's Back to the Future Day. And I'm kind of thinking, like, since time isn't like this linear object, it makes a lot of sense that it is just time playing out, and the places where there's a lot of these phenomena, you're just experiencing that time.
I've got to tell you, one of my dearest friends, he's passed away now, but he was a prison officer at Boggo Road Jail for more than 40 years. He was a good Roman Catholic, didn't believe in ghosts at all, but having worked at the jail for so long, he'd heard from his colleagues just about every experience they'd ever had. And so he's a wonderful source for old stories. And he told me himself that while he didn't believe in ghosts, that one night as he was walking what was called the track at Boggo Road Jail, he saw a prison officer walking towards him. Now, this is a part of the jail which, when you're put out there as an officer at night, no one else was going to come out and patrol. Perhaps your senior officer would check up on you in the early hours of the morning, but you're essentially locked out there and you're the last line of defence for the public inside the wall of the jail. So, I mean, you're talking about a very responsible position. And
you've got to be on, I guess, on all the time. You've got to be really just in case. And you probably think that nothing's going to happen being in that job, but you've got to be switched on.
110%. You're inside those walls. You've got, men who are desperados. Like they're not there by choice. They want to get out. So I find his story was that he saw an officer coming towards him, and as he got closer, he realised it wasn't the senior that was coming to just check up on him during the night, but it was an officer dressed in a uniform from about 40 years earlier. And he'd known because he worked there for some considerable time, and he identified this was a uniform that was no longer in use. And as the figure approached, he said just instinctively he saluted the figure, and the figure saluted back.
How wonderful.
And then the figure just sort of walked past him and kept walking and then disappeared. And
so, he's still on duty, like the priests and priestesses are.
My friend's theory was that he was it was the past replaying in the present, and that both men, his colleague 40 years before and himself, were seeing each other isolated by 40 years in time.
You know what I would love, and this is a weird time travel kind of thing that I'm putting in, I'd love it if some kind of a diary comes out and goes, it was this really strange kind of night where I was walking just out in there, just on duty, and then this weird kind of futuristic man came and saluted me, so I saluted back just in case he would hurt me, and then he kept walking. Would it be weird how
journal with it.
Like it's kind of, I like this idea of how ghost phenomenon that could be just these different time periods just somehow blending slightly together with each other, and you're seeing glimpses of both worlds, and since time isn't linear, it's kind of like a good explanation of how this stuff sort of goes in, and it means you are interacting with these people, but it's kind of like it's not like in the classic
they
trapped
can
ghost
recognize you
concept.
though. If they've known
it's
you, they can
yeah.
recognize you.
Yeah, I find it fascinating because it can be everything and all. But nice. Okay, so Boggo Road, that's obviously a classic one.
Yeah, I mean, that place is such a, if you go down the psychic road to explaining ghosts, well, that's a place where you couldn't find a place with more emotion, soaked into the very concrete and stone and brickwork. Men, being given a long period of imprisonment for a terrible thing that they've done. They're wrestling with their emotions for,
And did they have executions there too?
There were executions at the jail. There were 42 people executed there. And today, we're much more, today we still struggle with this issue of, when someone takes another person's life, what are the spiritual ramifications of that, in regards to the person who was executed, and indeed, those that carry out such a deed. And I mean, these were things that previous generations at the jail wrestled with as well. The hangman at Boggo Road in the early 1900s, he quit his job because he was haunted by the ghosts of those that he put to death, and so even he was carrying the weight of what he'd done. He claimed at night he was seeing their spirits coming back to see him, and this was a man who was an expert man killer, and he had dispatched quite a number of people. But as he reached sort of a certain point in that career, he began to say that they were coming to see, to visit him, and he was deeply troubled by it. So, to me, the one of the things I love about ghost stories is that they're very entertaining, and they're a really good way to learn about history, and inadvertently. And I mean, they'll be telling ghost stories on Mars in 2784.
There's probably a lot of ghosts on Mars if there's ancient civilization stuff.
Absolutely.
It's probably you get there and then this alien spirit goes, hey, there's no cheese here. It's on the moon. But I think that's fascinating because especially since there is so much inherent ghosts sort of stuff out there, especially with houses, I really want to sort of figure out, no one's really talked a lot about the ruins. And Amber, you've got a great amount of knowledge on this.
Well, the ruins, as I said, they're full of them. Because for the car spirits, right, they stay behind to look after the people they love. But thousands and thousands of years later, all those people have gone, even their bloodline's gone. So what they do then is they attach themselves to buildings.
Oh, I see.
They can also attach themselves to objects.
Yep.
That's why antique stores often have ghosts.
It's that's my cup. Don't touch my cup. He's touching my cup. I'm going to hang out with you now. There's that sort of thing.
These sort of ghosts that attach themselves to objects are quite different, I guess, from
to them. So I've got a very old silver-backed hand mirror, and I often look at that and think, I've got a fair idea who it belonged to, and I think, how fabulous. She would never have thought that this mirror would have gone across the world and ended up with me. And it's really special because, if you look into mirrors, sometimes you can see another face looking back at you, because there's an old legend that says everybody who looks in the mirror, everybody who owns it, their image has stayed there forever.
Trapped? What happens if you have a mirror in front and a mirror behind? Does that because it gives you that infinite 3D thing? Are you then
that would be
in
really
1,000
great.
mirrors?
Yeah, you might be.
Okay, cool. I've done that. I'm in many mirrors, so watch out. I could be there like Candyman.
There's actually a place at Saqqara called The Mirror.
Okay.
And it's in the ruins of Saqqara near the Step Pyramid. And it's not a mirror, it's just a blank, like a big doorway.
Okay. Yep.
And they say, and I know I've done it, it's if you stand there and you stare into that space, you start to get insights about yourself. So it's a psychological, spiritual mirror.
Okay.
So you see things about yourself.
Can I ask, Amber, we're talking about spirits being attached to objects. I love, I've never been to Egypt, but I've been to the British Museum a couple of times, and it's magnificent. But what are your thoughts on putting those ancient members of royalty and even the not so, famous on display in a museum? I mean, how would the Egyptians feel about the physical, remains of their people?
The modern
on display?
Egyptians don't care too much. I'm sure that the ancient Egyptians would be horrified, because once they were mummified and put into their tombs, which they called the House of Eternity, they were meant to stay there. That's why all the goods went in. And it was actually for the car spirit. because it was going to live there. It was its house, and it could come and go as it wanted to. So all those goods were actually for the car spirit. So now, if they've been scattered through different museums in the world, well, you're going to end up with those car spirits with them.
Maybe they could teleport to different objects. And
I would love to be locked in the
I'm going to
museum
Paris
all
today.
night.
It's an interesting thought, isn't it? But they would never have thought they'd end up in the Louvre or
Yeah.
Wow.
the British Museum. Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Ben Stiller hanging out with the guys. I think there was a movie done about that.
Yeah.
Night at the museum.
Yeah.